while you were the one with all the strength. A beautiful face without a name for so long. A beautiful smile to hide the pain. Did you ever know that you're my hero? And everything I would like to be. I can fly higher than an eagle. You are the wind beneath my wings. It might have appeared to go unnoticed, but I've got it all here in my heart. I want you to know I know the truth. Of course I know you. I would be nothing without you. Did you ever know that you're my hero? You're everything I wish I could be. I could fly higher than an eagle. For you are the wind beneath my wings. Did I ever tell you you're my hero? You're everything, everything I wish I could be. Oh, and I can fly higher than an eagle. You are the wind beneath my wings.
Manuel was always a keen observer, profound analyst, and friendly with good humor, humility, and respect for others. And in our younger days, he was quite adventurous as we traveled to remote, impossible regions of Belize, led a rather hilarious excursion to Mexico City in an old bus, and Manuel knew how to have a great time. When Kathy entered his life, the jigsaw puzzle was complete, all ready to move forward.
He was most humble, honest, and respectable throughout the years. Mr. Manuel was also a distinguished family man with a calm, no-nonsense spirit. I have been honored to know him as he displayed excellent leadership and high integrity. He has done a lot for our country, Belize, of which he was passionate about.
Manuel was also an avid reader and kept abreast of world developments, innovations, and rising leaders. And he contributed a column on such topics in the weekly newspaper. So it was not any surprise to me when his party won the election in 1984 and he became PM for the first time. He was well prepared and led our country with distinction. I do greatly admire Sir Manuel, especially for his integrity in all spheres of his life, his family, his friendships, his professional work, and his politics. He lived a life with noble principles. He never betrayed nor compromised, no matter what, including losing a national election. As a friend, a colleague at St. John's College, a mentor, and later as my superior in government, he always received my full esteem and respect.
I got to know Mr. Esquivel as a person who have a lot of sense of humor in him. I will always remember Mr. Esquivel as a person who always asks about people in his surrounding, especially in his division. You will also find Mr. Esquivel as a person who believes a lot in the people of Belize and this country.
No matter what's your status in life, he treated everyone with respect. He was very soft-spoken, calm, and honest. Back in 1996, we were involved in a serious road traffic accident. The vehicle in which we were traveling flipped 5 times, landed on all 4 wheels. I came out and checked first Sir Manuel, but he quickly instructed me to check on Leslie. Even though he greatly needed much assistance, it was then I further realized what a selfless man he was. I became even more appreciative of him as a human being.
On behalf of the Embassy of Belize in Washington, and of course myself and my family, I want to extend sincere condolences to Lady Kathy and to Laura and the Esquivel family on the passing of Sir Manuel. He taught me physics in high school and in 6th form and developed in me a love for physics that I carry today. And so for that, like many other Belizeans throughout this country, I'm eternally grateful to Sir Manuel for being such a great teacher, and of course for all the other things that he has done for our country. He's a true patriot, and we are all grateful for the life of Sir Manuel.
Sir Manuel Esquivel taught me physics in 3rd form. I remember 3 distinct qualities about him as a teacher. First was his ability for logical thinking. A razor-sharp analytical mind allowed him to cut to the heart of any physics abstraction. And also, he could state things in plain, simple, easy-to-understand, matter-of-fact ways. I also remember how soft-spoken, calm and patient he always seemed to be. On occasion, his dry wit would cause a murmur of appreciation. I believe we always knew we were being taught by a beautiful mind. And I think that his calm, cool, collected way of being and thinking were also on display in his public life as well.
My godfather, my second daddy, my second pa, those were the terms I used to refer to you by. You treated me like a daughter rather than a goddaughter. You took me into your family home to live with you guys, where you treated me very well, cared and nurtured me. You taught me a lot, and I will forever be grateful to you and your family. I love you, my godfather, and I will miss you. I have so many treasured memories that I will hold dear with me. I love you, godfather. Sleep on, my second daddy. Sleep on.
I love my granddad a lot, and I'm gonna miss him a lot too, because he was a very funny and great person. He would always take care of us when we were younger, when we would go down to Belize, and he would always make us feel better whenever we missed home, and I'm really gonna miss him a lot.
One of the last moments I had with Granddad was when we went to this new age restaurant. We didn't really think he'd like it because they served bugs there. And when we got there, we kind of coerced him into eating some bugs because he didn't really seem like he would like it. And, you know, he kind of just went along with it. And he always kind of did stuff like that for us, with us. And, you know, I love you, Granddad. I'll miss you.
I remember when I was younger, we had to do a project for school on someone famous, and I chose my granddad, and I was so proud to have his picture hung up in my classroom for everybody to see. I was so proud to be his granddaughter and hear about all of the wonderful things that he did, and the person that he was. And we love you, and we miss you, Granddad.
Rest in peace, Mr. Manuel.
Thank you, Sir Manuel, for everything.
Manny, my friend, rest in peace until we meet again.
Prime Minister of Belize, Sir Manuel Esquivel. Again, on this day, my name is Dale McDougall. I have the pleasure of presenting this broadcast to you nationwide through a collaboration of the Government of Belize Press Office and the mainstream media, Channel 7, Love FM, and Channel 5. And with me, I have the news director of Channel 7 on this broadcast, as we did yesterday, the incomparable Jules Vasquez. And good afternoon to you, Jules. And first of all, let's begin with sort of where we are and what are we seeing now on our screens.
Okay, good afternoon, Dale. Good afternoon, Belize. So we had the urn for the first time, an urn lay in state yesterday here at the Government House at 4 p.m. in a very stately procession, as you're seeing here. It was returned to the house. And now it's leaving the house again at 2:10 p.m. was the scheduled time, and they're a few minutes ahead, which is good. So we know there's a BDF urn party, and I know you will list the members for us shortly. But this is a BDF urn party. Yesterday's procession in the rain was a driving procession. Today is a walking procession. They're going to walk from Daly Street, the family home at number 8 Daly Street, all the way to the Government House where we are right now. So if you want to come out and bid your last wishes, you have time. It's not raining today. We know that also today we'll have the bells tolling. The bells will toll, I believe, at 2:12 p.m., if I'm right on the time. It is the only nod to religion in this entire state memorial.
Right, because as you rightfully said, in terms of the cadence of this event, this is the first secular memorial event we are having for somebody who's present or who's lying in state. Sir Manuel Esquivel, of course, as you mentioned yesterday, was not attached to any religion, and so we are seeing this play out this way because this is part of his wishes and certainly part of the Esquivel family. So as I understand it, we are going to see, like Jules explained, a slow march. So it's going to be a slow march for 15 minutes, followed by a fast march for 30 minutes, and then wrapping up with another 15 minutes of slow march. So that's going to happen between the family residence at number 8 Daly Street all the way to the Government House where Jules and I are stationed. And then we're sort of going to give you a color commentary of what you're seeing on your screen up until that point, and then we'll turn it over to the Master of Ceremonies for this occasion, Mr. Neil Hall. Jules, in terms of the order of things, where are we in terms of what's going to happen after this procession takes place, more or less?
Okay, so at 2:10 p.m. we're scheduled for the tolling, which is right about now. Tolling of the church bells along the road. So that's East East Baptist Church, 1 block away. We have Holy Redeemer Cathedral there near the Swing Bridge, Wesley Methodist Church, which you'll pass on Albert Street, and the Cathedral Church of St. John the Baptist, which we know is just a few hundred feet away from the Government House where we are. So those 4 churches, I believe, when the procession passes, will toll their bell, and again we will not to any religious observation during this time. And it's important because the state and the church must note the passing of a great man, a great leader. So that makes its way to the Government House. This slow and fast moving procession, as we see, and when it comes here at 3 p.m., it is scheduled to arrive at the House of Culture. And so there you see the urn bearer. I think we have his name here.
Major Ruben Kowa is the urn party commander. Escorts to the urn are Captain Jairo Che and Captain Galen Roberto. The cushion escort, as we explained yesterday, is Captain Adrian Bosch, and the sword party commander is Captain Elmer Mo. The firing party commander is Staff Sergeant Gladstone Palacio, And of course, as we noted yesterday in this case, the chief mourner is Lady Esquivel, and she's accompanied by her aide-de-camp on this occasion, Major Megan Aspinall of the Belize Defense Force. The state memorial, as we said, is being facilitated by the 4 Sergeant Major Warrant Officer Class 1, Wilfredo Mahano, who's a graduate of the NCO Leadership of Excellence and Sergeant Major Academy. So a lot of the sort of pomp and circumstance that we're seeing here today is being facilitated by members of the Belize Defense Force.
And not to forget members of the police department as well. We know that the commander of operations, Assistant Commissioner Alfred Greenwich, is in charge of the entire unit that's escorting this cortege.
Right.
So they are in charge of security, in charge of clearing the traffic. We know that we almost had a major traffic miscommunication today, but the original plan was to proceed on Regent Street, but that, due to a miscommunication, that is now down Albert Street as it was yesterday. But if we go into the we see the BDF band is an integral part of this, and we will go through a little bit of the history of the band later on. But we know that it's if you go in the minds of the Earn Party, you know, these guys are disciplined soldiers, but they can only walk so far. The case and the Earn itself is a significant weight, and there will be a changing of the Earn escort at
somewhere.
2 locations.
Right.
I think they don't want to disclose exactly where it is for their own reasons, but we know that it will change hands twice, because it's a very stately, a very disciplined procession, but it's quite a distance. If you judge the distance from Sir Manuel's house to the government house, it's probably about, I'd want to say, a mile to maybe 1.25 miles.
More or less.
And walking in that cadence, it takes its own toll.
Right.
So we know that they will be changing along the way. But they are coming here for the government house, deal, for a most unusual day. Again, it's unprecedented for a state memorial. There will be no blessings, no funeral rites, no last rites. That was not Mr. Esquivel's belief or his wish. They are coming here for a celebration. That is what Mr. Esquivel wanted, and it's going to be a concert.
Right, a concert of secular music, of a classic tone, a classic undertone.
But it starts out very soulfully.
Right.
I'm told that that in the rehearsals it was quite chilling to hear the first part of segment 1, led by Tremett Perriott, who performs that Simon and Garfunkel song,
Bridge Over Troubled Waters.
Bridge Over Troubled Waters, and that is the first performance we'll see today. I'm told the rehearsals were very rousing. Then he will be followed by
another wonderful songbird, and she'll be doing her rendition of Over the Rainbow and Wind Beneath My Wings by Bette Midler. So her rendition, I'm getting the same kind of information that in terms of the rehearsals that had to be undertaken yesterday, it gives you a wonderful chilling yet chilling feeling, a feeling where emotion certainly will be invoked on this occasion because of the nature of today's business. And so these 2 singers will lead off with the first segment, and then we'll have a second segment which will include a recording called Old Belize by Mr. John Peter Esquivel.
So that we just want to, if we could pause there.
Right.
So I assume that is by Sir Manuel's father. We know that Sir Manuel came from a musical family.
Yes, he
did.
did.
His father was a self-taught violin player, and he used to play for the silent movies at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And his mother, Laura Bolton, that's her maiden name, Laura Bolton, would also play pianos for these silent movies at the time.
Yes.
And we presume that is how they met, because it was frowned upon, their union was frowned upon by the Bolton family, because John Esquivel was of very poor birth, as it would be considered then.
Right.
No judgment in that statement, but that is how the Bolton family perceived it, because the Bolton family is what would be called Royal Creoles, right?
Sort of an aristocratic kind of.
Right, but by name only, because we learn in Lady Esquivel's book that they did not have the wealth, the actual wealth to back up that social standing they
Actually,
strove
Jules,
for.
I'm being told that the selection is from his brother.
From his brother, okay. Oh, his brother John, who migrated to the U.S. and
Right.
joined the army, I believe.
Right.
Right, okay. We know that Sir Manuel was one of 4 children. They are approaching the swing bridge now. We know that Sir Manuel was one of 4 children, and John was one of 3 sons, I believe they had in that family. Sir Manuel, John, and Billy, whose name I believe was Andrew. And
who you explained yesterday was also a gifted musician, a
he was
proficient.
he was a proficient pianist, and so we know that. So it's by his brother John. So we're grateful for that. We know that he has a sister Rita who had migrated to New Orleans as well, and his brother John, who composed the composition, had enlisted in the U.S. military.
Right.
So we see the procession coming down Queen Street. It's a spectacular shot. Again, all the media houses combining to give you the front shot, the back shot, the overhead shot. It's really a good spirit of cooperation that Mr. Esquivel has fostered for us to all do this without ego or income.
Right.
So I think there will be a changing of the urn pretty soon, and there we see the BDF band again. But so, okay, so the bells from the churches, we expect the bell from the Holy Redeemer Church to be tolling pretty soon.
Right.
Since the urn should have reached that junction by now, and we can see that spectacular drone shot of Queen Street, and there's the urn proceeding right to the junction. So those bells at Holy Redeemer should be tolling now.
Actual
we see the
and
party commander. Did it click there?
Yep, indeed. It's because it's I don't want to overstate it too much, but this is a gargantuan task to be slow time, fast time, slow time, which will take literally about 45 to 50 minutes to get here under these very strict guidelines that the disciplined Belize Defense Force operates under. But speaking of the bells, Jules, at 12 minutes past 2 o'clock, as a matter of fact, the bells at St. Catherine Academy tolled.
We know that Sir Manuel's aunt, John's sister, his father John's sister Cecilia, was a sister of mercy. So that is a significant note there, no?
Right. It tolled at 12 minutes after 2 o'clock in honor of Sir Manuel, as I'm being told by a representative from the Sisters of Mercy, who also expressed their condolences to the family and to the country on this occasion.
Right, and I know that Sister Cecilia is a very great name, having dealt for so many years with the indigent and the homeless. We have the Sister Cecilia home where many on the margins of society can still get a warm meal.
Right.
So indeed that Esquivel name is strong at that monastery, and he was raised a Catholic as well.
Right. And so now what we're seeing now is the...
Did I say monastery? I meant nunnery.
Nunnery, yes.
Convent.
Convent. So we are now seeing the aerial shot of the Old Swing Bridge with the BDF representatives, the band, and they're making their way onto the Regent Street, Albert Street area there in front of City Hall.
Okay, I expect a change in the urn pretty soon, if it hasn't changed yet. It has changed. Okay, so there is a new urn bearer, and he will take it. I believe he will take it all the way down Albert Street, as his predecessor did, all the way through Queen Street. And these are the main streets of the city, and certainly as a schoolboy going to Holy Redeemer School from the home on Daly Street, Both Sir Manuel's parents came from Daly Street. John Esquivel lived on the canal on Daly Street at the bridge.
Right.
And his mother, Laura, lived at that Bolton house, which at 8 Daly Street, which has been his family home his entire life. And we know that he went to primary school at Holy Redeemer, right?
Yes, he did.
Right down the street. And so he had that Catholic upbringing.
As did his children.
Right, as did his children, indeed. And we know he had that Catholic upbringing, and he was for many years, for all his life really, a child of Belize City. In his life story, it is related that he used to go to Corozal, where his father had a cocal, which is a coconut plantation. But and we know his father's roots are from Corozal.
Yes.
But Sir Manuel is a child of Belize City. After Holy Redeemer, he went on to St. John's College. He won a scholarship to SJC. He was an outstanding student throughout, and then he went, of course, to Loyola University in New Orleans, a Catholic, Jesuit school as well.
Right.
Then he came back and taught at the Jesuit school. So Sir Manuel was very steeped in the Catholic tradition and in the Jesuit way of instruction. This is an impressive sight. We said yesterday that Sir Manuel would recoil at all the fanfare, but at the same time, as a society, it gives us a chance to say, no, stop. This is important. And this is something we must honor by its essence, which is so good, which is undeniable.
And I, like I said yesterday, Jules, another opportunity to say thank you for your service right up on your service to the country, and this is the best way, in concordance with the family, of course, the best way we know how to give him this proper send-off. And so this is what we're witnessing on this day as the cortege makes its way through Albert Street, and it will, as like I said earlier, 15 minutes of slow time, 30 minutes of fast time, and then culminating with the final 15 minutes of slow time. And that should take us right up until it gets here at the Government House in Belize City. Again, we are marking the final day of the State Memorial for Sir Manuel Esquivel, the Right Honorable Sir Dr. Manuel Esquivel, the former two-term Prime Minister of Belize. He served from 1984 to 1989, and on a second occasion from 1993 to 1998. And on both occasions, he served as the minister responsible for finance.
And he also a two-term city councillor in Belize City, 1974 and 77, and a three-term area representative for Caribbean Shores from 1984 to 1998. We know he was a failed candidate in Freetown when he ran against George Price in 1979. Then they split up Freetown
into Freetown and Caribbean Shores.
Freetown and Caribbean Shores, and he took Caribbean Shores. George Price remained in Freetown, where he famously lost to Derek Aikman. And then George Price moved on to Pickstock, which Price's sister Jane Utter
held for a number of years.
Well, yeah, and she had beat Paul Rodriguez in Pickstock in that massive UDP loss of 1979. So, but if we could go over a little more of the funeral, what people can expect from this, not funeral, I misspoke, force of habit.
Memorial.
The State Memorial, which is a celebration, a concert.
Right.
So we have the other elements there. We told you about Tremet. Perriot will open up with Bridge Over Troubled Waters, followed by Nelita Castillo singing a few classics from the American Songbook, which is Over the Rainbow, Wind Beneath My Wings, a latter day classic. And that's when David Esquivel will give what I was told was a eulogy, but now it's being stated as a family remembrance. And maybe a eulogy is something you give more at a classically formatted funeral.
Right. And
segment 2
begins with a recording of Old Belize by John Peter Esquivel, the brother of Sir Manuel. And then we have some classical music.
We also have a video recording from the family, or is that integrated with the song? Okay, that's integrated with the song.
Right. So so all Belize and that video recording integrated together, followed by some classical music. The Voor Elise by Ludwig van Beethoven, performed by Diane Arda, who's a student of the Gina Scott Belize School of Music, run by Miss Gina Scott. Then there's going to be a prelude in C sharp minor by Sergei Rachmaninoff, performed by Diego Francois, also a student of the Belize School of Music, again led by Miss Gina Scott. And I believe Francois is also a member of the Pallotta String Quartet. Then there are going to be additional musical selections: Ode to Joy by Ludwig van Beethoven, and then Air on a G String Suite, number 3 by Johann Sebastian Bach. And that will be performed by Cindy Burgos and Selma Jones, Stephanie Coy, and Philip DeShield. And then a rendition of Edith Piaf's La Vie en Rose, and that will be performed by Angeli a little later on. After the music, though, we'll have an official remembrance by former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Dean Barrow, who Sir Manuel was his boss for the 2 Esquivel administrations of 84 to 89, 93 to 98. And then it will conclude with a third segment, which will be a more up-tempo, a more lively segment. There's going to be the Brockdown Medley, performed by Terry Ledlon, and then the Garifuna Collective will do Naguyane and, of course, the classic Waktina, and then it will conclude with the remembrance by Prime Minister of Belize, the Honorable John Briceño. In terms of the military side of things, you will see the March On of the Guard of Honor, followed by the National Anthem and the 21 gun salute on this occasion. There is going to be a last post, followed by a silent period of 2 minutes, then the Reveille, and then we'll have the placing of the wreaths by government officials. The Belize flag will be presented to the Esquivel family, and then, of course, the departures then will begin and conclude with a march off by the Belize Defense Force. That should take us to sometime around 4 o'clock this afternoon, more or less. And we'll bring it all here, of course, to you, again, because this is a national effort by the Government of Belize Press Office, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, and, of course, Love FM, Channel 7, Channel 5, and to all the other media stations that are rebroadcasting this event for their listeners. You can also find it on Facebook and, of course, on YouTube.
We see the rain has started. In Creole culture, we would say showers of blessing.
Indeed.
And those showers of blessing have been coming down for the past 2 days. So indeed, they seem timed to set the tone for somber reflection.
Yes.
And also it creates some logistical problems for our teams out there, because they're out there with their cameras and phones. So I know those guys are taking a lick. We see that it has stopped here right at the heart of Belize City in the downtown area. The urn bearer is holding up, but I'm not certain what has caused a stoppage here between Prince, King, and I think they're just combining everything back. And we see the police escort, of course. So they're moving again. And this is really the heart of Belize City. Streets that Sir Manuel certainly has traveled down so many times in his life. And we know that the BDF and the police escort, for them it's a proud day for their families to see them in this apex national moment.
Indeed.
But it's also, I think, something that can give them a great sense of prestige and pride to know that I know some of the guys who escorted Mr. Price, for example, the ones who carried his coffin. You know, they're immortalized in photographs that were taken at that time.
Right, and I would imagine that applies in the case of the other funerals of this cadence that we've seen. For in the case, I think of the case of Philip Golson back in 2001. I also think of the recent one by Dame Anita Gordon for Dame Anita Gorton, the first Governor General. And now we are witnessing this one for the second post-independence Prime Minister, Sir Manuel Esquivel.
And we know that right here at the grounds of the government house, we're seeing the invited guests again. This is limited by invitation. We're told 150 people only. COVID regulations, not the Congress wish. But so we're seeing the invited guests start to trickle in and to take their seats for what will be a most unusual but certainly not unexpected end to Sir Manuel's public life. Not unexpected because it is uncharacteristic, it is unique, and he was in a very silent way, in a very quiet way, an expression of all those things. He was unique without being ostentatious. He was singular without being a show-off.
Right. And that just speaks to who this man was, whose contributions have continued to have a lasting impact on Belizean society. We note the arrival of the former Governor General, Sir Colville Young, arriving on this occasion.
Sir Colville KCMG, one of the only remaining Belizean KCMGs.
Right, who, like Sir Manuel, is part of the Order of St. Michael and St. George.
And now we know that we've seen throughout the honorifics this week, Right Honourable Dr. Sir Manuel, KCMG PC, Privy Council. We only have two of those. That is Right Honourable Dean Barra and Right Honourable Said Musa.
Right.
Sir Manuel and the Right Honourable Price were other members of the Privy Council, and they have now passed on.
Yes. So what's happening here, we're seeing on our screens the procession is making its way, the cortege, it's making its way down Albert Street. It's passing right in front of your studios there, Jules.
And what I don't see, and this is a sharp distinction with George Price's funeral, for which a holiday was given, we don't see mourners lined up on the side of the street. A, it's the weather. But B, it's also the fact that George Price was a sainted figure in this country, and Manuel Esquivel, he, as Michael Finnegan, his ardent supporter, said yesterday, history has absolved him, but at the time of his life in politics, he took a beating publicly. Many people disliked him, spoke against him. He was the subject of a vicious political campaign as a Vatman, and so
often compared as icy and unemotional and uncaring, when, truth be told, those were the things that sort of governed the very difficult decisions that he had to make on a policy level, for sure.
Yes, I think that perhaps if we judge all our leaders, we would say that he is right there at the height of putting people first, because we know that putting the party first was never a priority for him. But it is of significant note that the streets are not lined with mourners. I recall when Mr. Price, and it's not to compare them, it's just that for historical analysis, we have to note that when Mr. Price was brought down from Belmopan, there were people, there were villagers on the side of the road. It was a holiday, I recall, and it was truly a moving moment. But here, we don't see that type of outpouring. Again, clearly the weather is a factor, etc. But nonetheless, I know and we're in the social media era, which you know that Mr. Price's, and it's one of my great regrets, Mr. Price's procession, or the carriage of the body from Belmopan to Belize City, was not captured. Because we never had no technology to do it live. Nobody did. And had we had that, it would have been, we would have had some of the greatest shots because, people were out there on the road, on the highway. But now we live in a different era. You can stay home and thanks to the combined technology of the government press office and the various independent media houses, you can see every step of the way. You can see it from the safety of your home.
Indeed. And that cannot be, and I don't think that can be overstated, Jules. This massive effort to put this show on for Belize and Belizeans to simply remember the country's second prime minister on this occasion. But I also want to repeat something that we said yesterday, is the fact that we can't measure what the family, Lady Esquivel and her children and their grandchildren, are experiencing at this time. In the 10-minute presentation that preceded our start of the broadcast today, you heard different accounts on how he impacted each and every person's life. We heard from a goddaughter, we heard from some of the grandchildren, we've heard from very close friends, we've heard from people who worked with him in his constituency office, from various walks of life. And you cannot go wrong by simply saying that people appreciated what Mr. Esquivel did for this country and the way how he impacted their lives in such a meaningful and powerful way. And he did it without that air of ostentatiousness, as you said, that air of arrogance, without worrying about what kind of ramifications it would have on the party itself, but more he thought along the lines that this was the best thing for Belize. And I think that sense of Belizean pride, should be an example for the rest of us, so that we can live our lives as he did for our country, unashamedly and in such a wonderful and powerful way.
Indeed, and I think that it's very important that we make critical analyses of our leaders in the educational system, and that we assess their contributions and their accomplishments. And certainly one of the and we see the students there lined up, and I would wish to ask them if they know who that Mr. Manuel Esquivel, because we know that recent history is an area of neglect in our school system, but it's important that we are able to say openly, X leader tried X strategy, failed. He or she may have tried another strategy with success, and that we make these critical analyses, and that we do so with some space afforded us by history. We discussed yesterday the central bank, and we'll never be forgiven if we don't correct the figure, that it was not 50 million but 20 million.
Okay.
Because so many people have come down on me for us misquoting that figure, but we know.
I remember the reason I just want
you remember the propaganda version?
I remember the propaganda version. That's the clarification I want to simply make. That was what was said at the time.
But so I'm saying, if you look at the central bank in that moment and you say, wow, this is just grotesquerie, spending all this money on the wrong thing. But when history affords you, when the compress of time releases some of the charge, some of the political charge that was associated with that, and you have a historical perspective, and you can say 20 years later, okay, 20 million, what do we have now? Was it well spent? And you can say, okay, yeah, right, it's a major functioning symbol of our country's economic well-being.
Indeed.
So, and you can do that, and we will have to do that historically with all the leaders and all the projects we undertook eventually, that we can say in 20 years' time, was this worth it? We know all the heat that was associated with it all at that time, but looking at it now in the light, what do we see? And hopefully, I certainly believe that, as Michael Finnegan has said, that history will absolve him. But you know what? History's absolution hardly mattered to Sir Manuel. He was really a family man, Dale. You know this. His most important thing was his family and the love and acceptance of his friends, his family and his grandchildren. Those were really at the center. And the UDP was totally important to him. But we know that you can't mind a political party like a baby because it's the most unruly animal on earth. No one can take care of a political party. And so certainly Mr. Price's, I think there was no one as integrally linked to the PUP as Mr. Price. That was literally his DNA that went into that party. And same is true for Mr. Esquivel, but to a lesser extent because ultimately he was a family man.
Yes, and you're right, because when we saw the presentation of the video preceding this broadcast, that came before this broadcast this afternoon, we heard firsthand from some of the grandchildren about the impact that Granddad had on them and their lives, and they recapped some of the most important and most cherished moments of their lives with Sir Manuel. And so that was really by and large a testament, certainly in my perspective, of how important family must be at the center of anything that you do. And for as difficult and as challenging, as energy sucking as something as politics is, that was perhaps his resort, his haven after a long day trying to run this country, trying to do right by the people of Belize, trying to correct the path of the financial, the economic, the infrastructural path that Belize was going on, navigating the course and staying with it. After a very long day in Belmopan, I imagine that getting hugs from his children and grandchildren were such an important part of his recharge to say, okay, let's get back out there and let's do it again. And I think that's the kind of comfort that Lady Esquivel and his children and his grandchildren certainly brought for him, not only during the time he was the leader of the country, but certainly in his years after leaving office.
And you know, ultimately, while Mr. Price, certainly and with good reason, occupies the highest level in the pantheon of politics in Belize, the fates of Esquivel and Price are forever twinned, because only this unassuming school teacher was able to beat the great lion of politics in Belize, Right Honorable George Price, and he did it twice. And so ultimately, while Mr. Price's political legacy spans all of nationalism, and that is untouched, Mr. Price was not running true democracy until Manuel Esquivel became leader of the UDP. And that, I underscore what I said yesterday, is the greatest legacy he has left Belize, because the fact is, history has shown us no one else, for a combination of reasons, race and ethnicity not least of them, no one else could have led the UDP to victory in 1984. And that's what proved that Belize had a true democracy.
While the procession is making its way down Albert Street, it's passing in front of the Baron Williams building, heading into the area near Anglican Cathedral College. I believe that's when there's going to be the slow march, and the urn is pretty close, Jules.
It will change hands again, I believe.
It will. I would think so if it hasn't already. But at the same time, here at the Government House, we note the arrivals of some of the invited guests. I see Prime Minister Honorable John Briceño, who's going to be delivering an official remembrance throughout the course of the program. His Cabinet Secretary, Ambassador Stuart Leslie, the Mayor of Belize City, Bernard Wagner. I also caught a glimpse of a couple of ministers of government. I saw Minister Henry Charles Usher earlier. We have representatives, of course, of the United Democratic Party.
Right.
Area Representative Honorable Tracy Panton
We
is
see
here.
the leader of the opposition.
Moses Shinebarrow is just arriving. I see in my view here both the President of the Senate, Carolyn Trench Sandiford, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Valerie Woods. Those are some of the guests that are invited here today.
And
members
before us right now is the MC of the event, to whom we will hand over
very shortly. The capable Mr. Neil Hall. We'll be taking over from us in just a few moments. I see members of the clergy here as well. Bishop Philip Wright of the Anglican Church is here. Reverend Linda Mugale, also of the Anglican Church, is here. I see a number of the Honorable Michael Finnegan, former minister, standard bearer, Philip Willoughby of the UDP, and other representatives of the party are also here. I think I saw the Secretary General of the UDP, Dr. Carol Babb, earlier. A number of individuals from both sides of the political divide are participating in this event. I think the former Prime Minister should be arriving momentarily if he's not here as yet, but he'll be also delivering an official remembrance throughout the proceedings this afternoon.
And if we look now at the BDF escort there on the far end of Albert Street East, we're going to call it.
Right.
Right in front of Equity House, the chambers of Baron Williams. They're moving at that stately pace. The cortege is moving at that stately pace right up to the junction of Regent Street at the Government House. If the signal is breaking up a little at home, it's because we're all using mobile network data, and in these congested urban areas it's a little bit unreliable. But the importance of the symbolism, the importance, even in my opinion, even carrying an urn is an education, right? Is an education in difference. If at home tonight families are talking about that, you don't understand how pleased Sir Manuel would have been at just that spirit of inquiry that is sparked by this unconventional way of memorializing him.
Right.
That he chose, that his family followed through on.
Right.
Right? If that sparks even a glimmer of curiosity and inquiry amongst students, amongst young people, he would be so satisfied at that, because Sir Manuel was really an educator to the bone.
Right, indeed.
He had that, he was so committed to that he even sought that out in his public life.
Yes, and like I mentioned yesterday, the basis of understanding science, and I've openly concede that I was not a very good science student, but I understood...
The science of speaking you seem to have mastered, though.
Well, that's a matter for public opinion, I guess. The jury's out on that one. But by and large, the idea that you must ask questions, the natural sense of inquisitiveness, I think, drives and fuels the love for science, always trying to figure out how things work and why they work that way. That was something, I think, like you rightfully said, Sir Manuel carried not just as a teacher or instructor of physics, but certainly in his public life, providing opportunities to ask questions. And speaking of questions, he was one of the individuals who readily answered questions that I had when we talked about various things of a national concern. And I note right now the arrival of the Governor General of Belize, Her Excellency Froila Salam.
And they're arriving in a quite heavy drizzle now.
Indeed.
Same like what we saw yesterday. Just a steady stream of rain, not hard rain, but it's quite heavy for a drizzle. And we've been speaking about the guests, but also the mood. Sir Manuel wanted a celebration, and the mood here, although we have the rain, we see the arrival of the Right Honorable Dean Barrow and his wife Kim, and his law partner, or is that Mr. Isigiri?
That's Mr. Isigiri,
former
Governor
of Central Bank, Glenn Isigiri. So we see these people arriving, but the mood is not like you would see at a funeral. The mood is very light, and it has a celebratory or an informal air to it, which is really a nice energy. I'm sure that's what Sir Manuel wanted.
And I think that if you look at the order of events for today, certainly that third segment of the program today, which will feature both Brokdong and Paranda music, I think will be even more enjoyable. They will sort of designed to lift the spirits of those who are out here on this occasion. Behind me, I think behind me you can hear the cortege is getting pretty close, Jules. You hear the Belize Defense Force band. The bells at St. John's Cathedral are chiming, which indicates that things are going to be kicking off here at the Government House in just a few minutes.
And it should arrive, the urn should arrive here at 3, and it's 7 minutes to 3, so they are right on time. They started out from the house like 2 minutes early.
Right. And again, this is, that whole shtick there is a reflection of how disciplined the Belize Defense Force is and how an integral part they play on occasions like this. But what I am sitting here thinking, I'm looking at the gentleman, there's the officer who's carrying the urn, who has been carrying the urn, I believe, from when the cortege was on Swing Bridge. He's still carrying it even throughout the rain. I wonder what he is thinking right now, Jules. What do you think this gentleman here on the screen is possibly thinking? This huge responsibility of carrying the nation's second prime minister in his arms and bringing him to be memorialized. I think some of the video and the pictures certainly will prove for good stories that he can tell his children and grandchildren for sure. But I think it reflects, I think in his mind, perhaps a sense of pride to have been asked to participate on this very important national occasion.
And we see the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, and I don't know the name of the officer because we only had the name of the first person who carried it. But I would say that right now he is focusing, as one must do in physically arduous times, is focusing on not allowing any mishap to occur, because we know that what he's carrying there with the vase, the urn itself, and the wooden frame that it's in, he is carrying 25 to 30 pounds, and he's been doing so for about 20 minutes,
right?
25 minutes, and we know that it ain't easy.
It's certainly not.
So,
it's certainly not.
So he's certainly focusing on, as they say in American football, not dropping the ball.
Right. No fumbles today.
No fumbles today, sir. But we see them approaching now to the Government House. The crowd is mostly in place, and again, they have up tents, and you all will be seeing this at home very shortly. They have up tents, but it's the colors are so festive. It's like a September celebration.
Right.
Everything is draped in red, white, and blue. It's not funereal at all. It is not somber. It is not dark. It is bright, although we don't have the sun because of all the whites. And you all will be seeing this at home shortly. The colors are bouncing off, and it really captures the spirit of the celebration.
Right,
that Sir Manuel had intended.
Certainly. And to complement the ambience that we're describing to you here at the Government House will certainly be complemented by the musical choices that have been made on this occasion. Like I said, Tremette Perriott will be leading off with Bridge Over Troubled Water, originally recorded by Simon and Garfunkel back in 1968. We also follow with Miss Nelita Castillo, Over the Rainbow. Some of you remember that from the 1940s film Over the Rainbow, and then Wind Beneath My Wings, a 1980s track by Grammy Award winner Bette Midler. But Nelita will certainly put her own twist to both of those tracks. Then we'll have a family remembrance by David Esquivel, the son of Sir Manuel, during that time as well. Then the second segment of today's event will be led by a recording of Old Blues by John Peter Esquivel, the brother of Sir Manuel, followed by classical music. We'll hear some Beethoven by Dan Arda from the Belize School of Music. Then we'll have music originally composed by Sergei Rachmaninoff, again from the Belize School of Music. We'll hear some Beethoven, we'll hear some Bach as well, and we'll have some Edith Piaf. Then an official remembrance by the former Prime Minister, and then some Belizean music will follow in the third segment. A Brockdong medley by Terry Ledlon, and then the Garifuna Collective, Paul Nabor's Smash Naguyane, and Andy Palacios Watina will be in that block. And then it will conclude with, of course, a remembrance by Prime Minister, the Honorable John Briceño.
We see that it's 2:58 with half a minute, and the BDF is entering. I expect that the urn will enter at exactly 2:59 to 3 p.m.
Right.
So there, you could set your Swiss timepiece by the accuracy with which the BDF is operating, much to their credit.
Right.
And we know that once they arrive here with the urn, I expect that it will be placed on a pall right at the front there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, very unusual for Belize, because once these things enter, we expect some prayer or some spiritual mention to be made, but that is not in the plan, and that it's really an education for all of us, and it's a moment in history that we may not see again very soon, because there are few as courageous as Mr. Price to be who they want to be, rather than conform to some social expectation of what a leader should be, that he should go to church every Sunday, and this sort of thing, which is one's freedom to choose.
Right, and again, big kudos to the Belize Defense Force under the direction of 4 Sergeant Major Warrant Class Officer 1 Wilfredo Mahano. He's the one facilitating the state memorial. Funeral director is Warrant Officer Class 2 Delton Morgan, the Regimental Sergeant Major for the 1st Infantry Battalion. The urn party that we're seeing here is led by Commander Major Ruben Kowo. Escorts to the urn are Captain Hairu Che and Captain Galen Roberto. The cushion escort is Captain Adrian Bosch. The sword party commander on this occasion is Captain Elmund Mo, while the firing party commander is Staff Sergeant Gladstone Palacio. On this very important occasion, the chief mourner is, of course, Lady Esquivel, the wife of Sir Manuel, and she's being accompanied by Major Megan Aspinall as her aide-de-camp. Again, all of this, what we're seeing, what we're describing, on the BDF's part certainly, is being facilitated by 4 Sergeant Major Warrant Officer Class 1 Wilfredo Mahano. So Jules, as we see now, the urn is on the compound here at the Government House, and it's making its way to where
at 3 p.m. on the dot.
Indeed. We're seeing...
So, and we see the family, we see his daughters, Ruth and Laura, just came along because they were, if not in the procession, following the procession. They've just arrived. Ruth, Laura, her husband, James Rampton, and we see, I haven't seen David, but I'm sure he's around as well.
Yes, because he will be doing the family remembrance when we take it over to the main stage.
And we know that Laura has the name of Sir Manuel's mother as well, who was Laura Bolton, married to John Esquivel.
Okay, and I believe you are hearing the national anthem, you've heard the Prime Minister's salute. The Prime Minister's salute, of course, is the first 4 bars or measures of the national anthem, and that signals that we are just a few minutes away from taking it over to Mr. Neil Hall, the Master of Ceremonies, on this very important national occasion. And now, as I described earlier, the urn will be brought to this area where Jules and I are situated, but it's going to be a slow march up until we get to that point.
And we know that it's being called a memorial concert, and it will be followed by official military honors, which will include the playing of the national anthem, the full anthem by the Belize BDF band, and a 21 cannon salute by the BDF, along with the placing of wreaths by officials and presentation of the Belize flag to the family of the Right Honourable Dr. Sir Manuel Esquivel. So now we know that the Government House has the 3 old colonial or British cannons right there on the front lawn facing the sea, symbolically. And we see, and you all will see this later at home, that the actual functional mini cannons that are used for these ceremonial events have been placed between 3 mini cannons, and those are what will give us the 21 cannon salute, but that follows the state memorial concert.
Right, and that is significant because when you think, because on the occasion of independence, for example, or on...
We see Lady Esquivel is entering right along with the urn, along with her son David, and we see the various grandchildren. I believe they were in the procession. She is accompanied, of course, by Major Aspinall,
Major
Megan
Aspinall, who's the aide-de-camp on
right.
this occasion.
She has over 15 years experience in the military.
Currently, she serves as Senior Finance and Logistics Officer at the Belize Defense Force. She was also officer commanding the infantry company, and she rose to that position from the second officer commanding the infantry company, and she was also the battalion adjutant. So Major Aspinall comes with great experience, and she is the aide-de-camp to the chief mourner, Lady Esquivel, on this occasion.
Right, so we see Lady Esquivel, her eldest son David, and we also see their grandchildren from the 2 unions, from the 3 unions that have produced children, and I don't know the number of them, but I would estimate that it's close to 9. And we see Henry Young, one of the early supporters of Sir Manuel in the Liberal Party.
First Minister of Tourism.
Under Sir Manuel, and we know that was a major thrust for the UDP at that time. And so the family is here, and they are going to be seated shortly, and that will mark the start of the funeral. We see the urn is making its way to the pall upon which is placed the first urn carrier. I believe that's Captain Hairoche, is the one who is taking it up. He got some relief from Swingbridge to the Government House, and then took it back over here. So he's placed it on the black pall.
And again, all of this, the entire pomp and circumstance, which the Belize Defense Force is responsible for, is under the careful direction, the careful facilitation of 4 Sergeant Major Warrant Officer Class 1 Wilfredo Mahano. So right now we have the members of the Defense Force going back behind, going to the front of the government house, while the event here, the memorial concert and associated events, will take place on the back lawn of the government house where Jules and I are located. Again, you're watching and listening to this broadcast through a collaborative effort of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, the Government of Belize Press Office, and the independent media Love FM and Love Television, Channel 7 and Channel 5, and those other stations there are also other stations rebroadcasting this event on their media for their listeners. But you can also find it on YouTube and on Facebook. Jules, I believe we're just about to take it away to Mr. Neil Hall. Anything you'd want to add before we do just that, in terms of what we're seeing, what we're, I'll call our commentary, if you may, of where we are now in this afternoon's proceedings?
They say, I hope to see you in the light when we're passing over from one state to the next. And we're already seeing the light in terms of this is a very festively, you can see it at home now. It looks like a September celebration.
It certainly does.
One of Sir Manuel's speeches where he honed in on that celebratory spirit.
Good afternoon to Her Excellency, Foil Islam,
we turn it over to
Governor General
Master
of Belize,
of Ceremonies, Mr. Neil Hall.
Honorable John Briceño, Prime Minister of Belize, Ms. Michelle Arana, Acting Chief Justice, Honorable Moses Barrow, Leader of the Opposition, His Worship Mayor Bernard Wagner, Mayor of Belize City, Sir Colville Young, former Governor General of Belize, Right Honorable Dean Barrow, former Prime Minister of Belize, and Mrs. Barrow, members of the House of Representatives, Ms. Valerie Woods, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Ms. Carolyn Trench, President of the Senate, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Neil Hall, and it is a true honor to be your host for this portion of the State Memorial Service for the late Right Honorable Sir Dr. Manuel Esquivel. Today, we will have an opportunity to learn more about him as a family man, a colleague, and former Prime Minister of Belize, as seen through the eyes and memories of his family, of his previous Prime Minister of Belize, the Right Honorable Dean Barrow, and the current Prime Minister of Belize, the Honorable John Briceño. The Right Honorable Sir Dr. Manuel Esquivel grew up in a household of musicians. His father played the fiddle and his mother played piano. They would play background music for the silent films. He and all his siblings grew up with an appreciation for music. It has been shared with me that Sir Dr. Esquivel used to play his favorite music every Sunday morning, sometimes in competition with his neighbors on Daly Street. Today, we will get to sample some selections that were chosen by Sir Manuel from a list he provided to his family. The musical selections you will hear this afternoon were some of his favorites. We will start off with a performance by Mr. Tremet Perriott, Bridge Over Troubled Waters, and then have Miss Nalita Castillo with her renditions of Over the Rainbow and Beneath My Wings.
Good afternoon. When you're weary when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your heart. Oh, when darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down. Sail on, sail girl, sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. Oh, when you need a friend. I'm sailing right behind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your
Good afternoon. I have to share something with all of you. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was taking a walk around Marion Jones Stadium, and Dr. Esquivel was walking with Ruth, and he called me aside and he said, "When I die, I want you to do something for me." And he said, "I won't tell you now, but I will leave it with Ruth." And I am so honored to be able to do this for him and for all of you. This gentleman's name is Dane Henry, and I really couldn't work without him. Thank you. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far, so far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops, way above the chimney tops. That's where you find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond that rainbow, why, oh, why can't It must have been cold there in my shadow to never have sunlight on your face. You were content to let me shine, that's your way. You always walked a step behind. So I was the one with all the glory, while you were the one with all the strength. A beautiful face without a name for so long, a beautiful smile to hide the pain. Did you ever know that you're my hero? You're everything I would like to be, and I would high fly than an eagle, 'cause you are the wind beneath my wings. It might have appeared to go unnoticed, but I have it all here in my heart. I want you to know I know the truth, of course I know it. I would be nothing without you. Did I ever tell you you're my hero? You're everything I wish I could be, and I can fly higher than an eagle, 'cause you are the wind beneath my wings. You are the wind beneath my wings. You are the wind beneath my wings. Fly, fly, fly away. but for you, the wind beneath my wing.
Thank you, Ms. Castillo and Mr. Perriott. We now would like to call on Mr. David Esquivel, the eldest of his 3 children, to share with you the family's remembrance.
Thank you, Neil. Boy, those are some tough acts to follow. Manuel Esquivel quietly entered colonial British Honduras on the 2nd of May, 1940, and just as quietly departed on the 10th of February, 2022. He was the youngest of 4 children, born to Pablo Juan Esquivel, known to most as Mr. John, and Laura Bolton Esquivel. He and his siblings, Andrew, who many knew as Billy, John, and Margaret, or Rita, grew up in the house on Daly Street, which later became our family home. Throughout his life, his calm, thoughtful, and honest nature earned him respect and gained him many loyal friends and colleagues. A man of unquestionable integrity, he always made decisions on what he thought was right. And because he was such a genuinely good-natured man, his personality remained gentle and calm, even to the end. He positively impacted the lives of hundreds of Belizean students with his intellect, approachability, and dedication. His innovations in the classroom made complex math and physics easier for his students to grasp. His ingenuity extended way beyond the classroom. One year, for example, when the game Operation came out, Dad made his own version of the game for us and made several extras to gift to the younger children in our extended family. He often made toys for us. He made me a rocking horse. Later on, he built us a swing set, complete with slide and monkey bars, a pretend shop for my sister, and even a life-size spaceship powered by an old blender. We could fit 3 or 4 of us in there. It was a bit tight, but we got off the ground. Manuel and Kathy met when she came to Belize from London as a volunteer teacher. They married in 1971 and planned their lives as educators. But because of his love of Belize and its people, he entered into politics to elevate our country, not through any personal political ambition. Dad always maintained the highest level of professionalism in public. But in private, and within his close circle, he was known for his quick wit and keen sense of humor. He was always willing to laugh at himself, and he was a fan of the British comedy series Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, which constantly poked fun of politicians. As a husband and father, he was kind and patient and always made sure you knew that he loved you. He took every opportunity to teach us and encouraged us to question, experiment, read, and listen in our quest to learn. He taught us to give people the benefit of the doubt and look for the best in everyone. Growing up, to know that we had disappointed him would have been worse than any punishment. So instead, we aspired to make him proud. He sang nursery rhymes to us all, and later to his grandchildren. His favorite was the Court of King Caractacus, which is quite a tongue twister. He loved to tell dad jokes, and he made sure to teach them to the grandchildren so they could repeat them to their friends. As with many grandparents, he spoiled his grandchildren. They could get away with things that we could never get away with as children. He was never keen on sharing his food, but the grandchildren could stick their fingers in his plate or even take the whole plate if they wanted. He fussed over them whenever they would visit. He wanted to make sure they were having a good time and that they felt special. Though we didn't have a large, extended family in Belize, Mom and Dad's close circle of friends more than made up for that. The Vasquezes, Graniels, Perdomos, Nisbets, and Sylvesters were always pitching in. Our family get-together always included this extended family. Over the years, we also shared our home with other children who, though not related, are still our brothers and sisters. Being the son of two musicians, as Neil has said before, Dad loved music. We woke up on Sunday morning to soundtracks from musicals. He loved musicals. And his favorite classical music. Family meals often had classical music in the background. He sincerely wished that today we should have a concert to celebrate his life, in music, rather than sadness. He leaves behind his wife of 50 years, our mother, Lady Kathleen Esquivel, 3 children, myself, Laura, and Ruth, 8 grandchildren, and many family members and friends who love him truly and unconditionally. While he is admired across the political spectrum, both locally and internationally, for his integrity, intelligence, and competence, to us, he's just Dad. Thank you all for coming. We would like to thank Dr. Sosa, Dr. Cuellar, and Dr. Smith for the care they provided in the last few years. Nurse Mosiah, Nurse Pamela, and caregivers Janisa and Kamisha, who cared for him with kindness and understanding. Ambassador Stuart Leslie and Mrs. Tasha Kane and their respective teams within the Office of the Prime Minister, the Protocol Office, and the Government Press Office for their professionalism, kindness, and attention to detail. They also somehow managed to get the rain to stop, so thank you for whoever you contacted to deal with that. Colorblind Media for helping us to produce our tribute video. Laura and I wish to thank our sister Ruth for her untiring support for our parents when they needed it most. Finally, thank you to all those who sent flowers, sympathy cards, stopped by our home, or sent messages of condolence. We appreciate the outpouring of love and support you have given us during this time. Manuel Esquivel, a life well lived. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Esquivel. And thank you, David. This second musical interlude consists of the playing of a recording of a song entitled Old Belize by the late Mr. John Esquivel, brother of Sir Manuel Esquivel, to be followed by Ludwig van Beethoven's Fleur Elise, performed by Diane Arda, Sergei Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor, to be performed by Diego Francois. Both Diane Arda and Diego Francois are students of Miss Gina Scott at the Belize School of Music. These selections will be followed by Ludwig van Beethoven's Ode to Joy and the Air on the G string by Johann Sebastian Bach, performed by the Paloti Quartet, and ending in La Vie en Rosé, originally by Edith Piaf, to be performed by Angélie. At this point in time, we'd also like to point out that we also have in attendance Right Reverend Philip Wright, representative of the Council of Churches and Bishop of the Anglican Diocese of Belize.
Got to get away, need a holiday. Sail away with me where life's a breeze in old Belize. Don't need no shoes, no TV news. Let's play in the sun, have some fun in old Belize. I long to hear the song of the reef, swim in the tropical blue sea, or share rainforest secrets in the Maya countryside, where jaguars run free with no need to hide. Don't procrastinate, don't hesitate. The Caribbean Sea is calling me to old Belize. And when evening comes, with the setting sun, we'll sing in the moonlight, dance under stars in old Belize. I long to hear the song of the reef, swim in the tropical blue sea, or share rainforest secrets in the Mayan countryside, where jaguars run free with no need to hide. Don't procrastinate, don't hesitate. The Caribbean Sea is calling me to old Belize. And when evening comes, with the setting sun, we'll sing in the moonlight, dance under stars in old Belize.
afternoon. Hold me close and hold me fast. This magic spell you cast. This is La Vie en Roses. When you kiss me, heaven sigh, and though I close my eyes, I see La Vie en Roses. When you press me to your heart, I'm in a world apart, a world where roses bloom. And when you speak, angels sing from above. Everyday words seem to turn into love songs. Give your heart and soul to me, and life will always be La Vie en Rose. When you press me to your heart, I'm in a world apart, a world where roses bloom. And when you speak, angels sing from above. Everyday words seem to turn into love songs. Give your heart and soul to me, and life will always be La Vie en
The Pelote String Quartet, comprised of Ms. Cindy Burgos, Anselma Jones, Stephanie Coy, and Philip DeShield. And at this point in time, we'd like to call on the Prime Minister of Belize from 2008 to 2020, the Right Honorable Dean Barrow, to please share with us his memories of Sir Manuel.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. Your Excellency, the Governor General, Dame Froila Salam, Honorable Prime Minister John Briceño, Honorable Leader of the Opposition Moses Shine Barrow, Madam Chief Justice Michelle Arana, Your Excellency Sir Colville Young, former Governor General of Belize, Honorable Ministers of Government, Honorable Members of the National Assembly, Madam Speaker of the House, Reverend Bishop Philip Wright, Bishop of the Anglican Diocese, Your Worship, Mr. Mayor, Bernard Wagner, Madam President of the Senate, I didn't see you for a minute, and I hope there's nobody else that I've missed, ladies and gentlemen, and most important, Lady Kathy, David, Laura, Ruth. The great Greek statesman Pericles is credited with having much enlarged, if not indeed created, Athenian democracy. His position as the first man of Athens was due principally, according to the historian Thucydides, to his manifest intelligence and incorruptibility. Plutarch's life also describes Pericles as a man of unchallengeable virtue, at grips with the fickleness of the mob. It was Plutarch, too, who painted a picture of Pericles as a man never seen on any road but that to the public offices, who was recalled to have gone to only one social occasion, which he left early. I hope that sketch is enough to demonstrate why, during his life and now at his death, I count Sir Manuel Esquivel as the Pericles of Belize. Elizabeth Barrett Browning wrote the famous sonnet, "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways." In these few days since his passing, an outpouring of sentiment has seen Belizeans from all walks of life counting the ways in which this nation loved Sir Manuel. Of course, it was not always thus. He was 2 times Prime Minister of this country, and by any reckoning, that was high political success. But there was a feeling that Manuel reached the summit more because people respected him than because they loved him. It is perhaps a measure of the man that Manuel was no doubt comfortable with that. There are few that would seriously argue with the virtue of love. I always had the feeling, though, that Manuel did regard the prize in politics to be respect rather than love. The fickleness of people about which Plutarch spoke meant that political love is often a transient commodity, one that can be bartered for by a trafficking in the baubles of the moment, a counterfeit ornament of public life, cheaply bought and easily lost. Now, Manuel never said any of this to me, but it surely is consistent with what we know of the man. Because you see, any proper framing of Manuel's life and legacy begins with that most striking of oxymorons. He was an honest politician. Examples abound of his possession of this rarest of qualities, but 2 stories will suffice. One is of the Corozal businessmen that visited his office to express their gratitude for Manuel's expansion of the free zone and the resultant huge increases in their profits. They knew better than to try to offer Manuel any personal financial token of their appreciation, but they wished to make clear that their thanks would mean substantial contributions to the UDP. Manuel stopped them right away. What he had done was a matter of policy for the benefit of all Belize. He would not allow anyone to sully his performance of duty by talk of reward either to him or to the UDP. The other story is of his interaction with a Caribbean Shores constituent. During an election canvass, a voter asked Manuel to pave Coney Drive. Manuel's riposte was, "I suppose you want it done with gold?" Now, there is no way to soft soap that. Manuel must have been more than a little exasperated by the constant importuning of the electorate. So he refused to reply with the usual politician's emollients. Indeed, his response was sarcastic to a degree that must have cost him that vote. But he was such a plain speaker, such a truth teller, that he could not help himself. Every other politician that I know, including yours truly, would have hastened to promise the constituent that not only would they pave Coney Drive with gold, but add in a few diamonds for good measure. Not Manuel, though. He was honest to a fault. Honesty, of course, is a necessary but not a sufficient condition for good leadership. The greatness of Manuel was that he possessed the other qualities in spades. There was his capacious mind, his fixity of purpose, his immovable resolve to do the right, though unpopular thing, his preternatural calm, the ice in his veins when confronted by crises, his being stirred to anger only by the evil of corruption. The sum total of this man was a wonder to behold. Like Pericles, he was never seen on any road but that to the public offices. In that context, I recall an incident in cabinet right at the start of his second term in 1993. A minister was insisting that we not approve a project for a certain entrepreneur. This was because, the minister said, that businessman had cut him dead after we lost the 1989 elections. Manuel made clear that the minister was wrong on two scores. One, no cabinet of his would proceed on the basis of animus against even a political opponent. And two, the minister was out of order to be upset over the businessman's refusal to socially notice him during the years in opposition. Manuel was stern. Ministers must never be seduced by the trappings of power, by the courtship paid them simply because of office held. In other words, for the majority of the private sector, relationships with politicians were merely transactional. Reality dictated a recognition of that sovereign principle. A minister that allowed his head to be turned by the flattery that came simply as an incident of political power was little better than a fool. The canvas that I have drawn is, I think, an accurate one. Nobody, though, ought to be misled into thinking that Manuel was some bloodless, soulless paragon. He was, for one thing, gifted with a lively sense of humor. He had the power of repartee and was quick to lighten a mood by retailing some joke. What I particularly remember is about an old Latin American dictator, utterly corrupted by a life of absolute power, but who was at death's door. His aide asked permission to bring to the general's bedside a delegation that had come to say goodbye. According to Manuel, the general replied, "Oh, goodbye? Why would they want to say goodbye? Are they going somewhere? Because I certainly am not." Manuel was never hail fellow well met. It was not easy to become an intimate of his. However, anyone that really got to know him considered it a privilege. He inspired great loyalty in his friends and colleagues, including me. We worked most closely together after the '93 elections when I became his deputy. It was a mentorship I never forgot and for which I was always grateful. I will tell another story to show what I mean. Our party lost terribly in '98. Manuel stepped down as leader, and I succeeded him. The UDP began the slow process of rebuilding, and I made frequent trips to the towns and villages of our country. In those days, public meetings were still in vogue, and I would never speak at a rally anywhere without invoking the name of Manuel. I felt that the party owed him a great debt of gratitude, and one way to repay it was to treat him as the tutelary deity of our cause. There was at that time, though, a new member of the executive of the UDP. He had come to us from the business class, and he had the pulse of that community. He took me aside one night after I came off the rostrum and conveyed a message from his private sector associates. I should stop the public references to Manuel and begin to distance the party from the ex-prime minister. Manuel was not in good odor with the captains of industry, and I personally needed, in any event, to come out from under his shadow. Of course, I let fly. Manuel would remain totemic for me and the party, and if that new executive member didn't like it, he and his blue-blooded scions could go straight to Hades. I'm naturally giving you the polite version. In actuality, it was as fine a piece of invective as I have ever delivered. I remain proud of it to this day. That was the kind of loyalty Manuel commanded. One final thing. It has ever been known that Manuel's public life was beyond reproach, but so too was his private life, and that also set him apart. Complete love and fidelity for his wife and utter devotion to his children. In domestic matters then, Manuel was again an exemplar of the probity, seemliness, and dignity that we have a right to expect from all our public leaders. Of course, his wife and children loved him back equally deeply. Lady Cathy was his rod and staff in good times and in bad, and no one can fail to be moved by the extraordinary tenderness and care that she and all the children, particularly Ruth, as the only one still living in Belize, gave to Manuel during these long years of his deteriorating health. And so, all of us, together with Lady Cathy and David and Laura and Ruth, now say farewell to Manuel. With this send-off, the official period of mourning comes to an end. Accordingly, we will move on. We will return to our workaday world, to Earth's diurnal turnings. We will do so, though, secure in the knowledge that the Right Honorable Sir Manuel Esquivel has ascended to the pantheon of Belizean immortals, that the Himalayan achievements of his life and leadership are imperishably stamped now on the eternal record of our nation's history. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those kind words and warm memories of the type of witty, honest politician that Sir Manuel was. We now have our third musical interval with a more localized flair. Please welcome to the stage Terry Ledland to perform a Brockdown medley, followed by the Garifuna Collective as they perform Nayuga Ne and Watina.
Good afternoon, everyone. Creole, no got no tribe.
Pleasant good evening to one and all. We are here for a great send off the Right Honorable Manuel Esquivel with what he had asked from the Garifuna Collective. So we want to say goodbye to you, Honorable, and that when all have been said, I know you're smiling where you are.
Nothing, one word, nothing, one word. Alabanaro, Turanika Banamama, Laura Mule, Agara family. Alabanaro, Turanika Banamama, Laura Mule, Agara family.
we're all here. We come, but we're not to stay. And I get to understand he was a great friend of the late, great Andy Palacio. And so we do this one called Watina, meaning I call.
Watina, sitina, tumuretina, tumalugudera mua, mati ayudate, amalgunina. Watina, sitina, tumuretina, tumalugudera mua. Mati ayudante, la melodina. Ariame, la segura, agule tegia, le periwate, segura. And all those who have gone before us. Yes, our hearts are full, but doing what we're supposed to do for our loved ones, we will never, never forget the good and the love that you have had for your people. Thank you. Watina, sitina, tumuretina, tumalugudera mua, mati ayudante, la melodina. Watina, sitina, tumuretina, tumalugudera mua. Watina, sitina.
ganina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now ask the current Prime Minister of Belize, the Honorable John Briceño, to please share with us his memories of the Right Honorable Sir Dr. Manuel Esquivel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hall. Lady Cathy, I never had the opportunity to really know Sir Manuel on a personal level. I know the public person. Never did I knew he enjoyed music so much. And this is quite a send-off we're giving him. And I know that he must be smiling somewhere in the universe looking at us enjoying this show that we have for him in his remembrance. We're here today to pay respect to our second Prime Minister. Indeed, we must not forget, though, that we are also here in solidarity with a wife, with 2 daughters, with his son, grandchildren, and other relatives and friends of Sir Manuel. The memorial concert, which was a celebration of music and fellowship, was beautiful. Now comes the solemnity. So that while the band plays and the cannons blast, let us remember our main purpose here today is to support a family, bidding farewell to someone very dear to them, and a nation honoring the contribution of our second Prime Minister. And so to Lady Cathy Esquivel, Ruth, Laura, David, the grandchildren, and all the family members and close friends, and yes, the UDP family, I extend condolences. I speak for a nation that is not only grateful for the service of our second Prime Minister, but on behalf of a nation that will never forget and will always value his contribution to the building of our nation. In the first chapter of her book, Still Waters, Lady Cathy Esquivel said of her husband, and I quote, "The typical politician is a paradox whose major characteristics is overweening ambition, leavened with varying degrees of desire to make good things happen." But Manuel Esquivel was never a typical politician. His modesty is genuine, and he was always a reluctant participant in the plotting and planning inherent in the political process. End of quote. I'm sure the former Prime Minister could understand that very well. She went on to speak of this as a sort of contradiction which she believed was weaved through Sir Manuel's political life. A life that started in the house where he was born and where he grew up. In many ways, leadership is not formed the day you choose to step forward to lead people, but it is formed via the people and circumstances in our lives. It is formed out of the paradoxes and contradictions for sure. Indeed, Sir Manuel's leadership in the UDP and his rise to the highest office in our nation had to be the sum total of it all. Who he was as a leader of a political movement and as a Prime Minister had to be influenced by many situations. His interrupted studies abroad, the unfair colonialism that existed in Belize for so long, the unavoidable face of poverty he saw each day on his way to work, a political party desperately in need of a national electoral victory. His party political battle scars, a political adversary with 4 decades of experience, a young undeveloped nation, and a collective of influencers who believed in him and those who stood in his way. The sum total of all these influences notwithstanding, history will find it rather incredible that a high school physics teacher would make this remarkable journey, which would not just see him rise to the highest office in the nation once, but twice. The job as a leader of a nation is not easy. Leading a nation just 4 years after independence must have been even more challenging. For sure, our second Prime Minister on occasions may have longed for those heady days teaching science at St. John's College. Perhaps there were days when he may have even asked himself, what could have motivated him to leave the formation of young men for the often turbulence of political leadership and the task of national government. Yet Prime Minister Esquivel stepped boldly on this path, facing challenges that were not easy. He made decisions, some politically detrimental, which had to be made for a greater good. He gave of himself with diligence, intelligence, and with steadfast devotion to the task of Belize's national development. Every day, the office of the Prime Minister presents challenges that can wear a person down and require a steady hand and a conscience of your convictions. I want to believe his wife and partner, Lady Cathy, and his 3 children help him through those turbulent moments. For sure, no one can question the resolve of Sir Manuel or his dedication to the task and his desire to complete and accomplish the things he believed were good for Belize. My generation will not soon forget that on the day of his first road traffic accident, the Prime Minister first saw to the needs of his driver and continued to the National Assembly. Bruised and shaken, he proceeded to present the national budget. We will also not forget his conviction, which was on full display in 1992, when he went against some of his own political colleagues and joined Prime Minister Price in signing a letter to the President of Guatemala, assuring him that the Maritime Areas Bill would be approved in the National Assembly. This action, in part, resulted in Guatemala for the first time recognizing the independent state of Belize. As former Prime Minister Dean Barrow pointed out, Sir Manuel's contribution did not end after he retired as a political candidate. He kept contributing by serving the Barrow administration as a senior advisor in the office of the Prime Minister for far less than minimum wage. I think it was $10, right? $1. And he had to do that so that he could be legally employed by the government. A man that was not wealthy and could have sure lived down with the extra money, he signed up for $1. That fully describes the person that Manuel Esquivel was all about, that he was about service to people and to country. The enduring lesson of Sir Manuel's public life can be summed up like this. He was a Prime Minister who led our nation his way, with integrity and determination, never compromising who he was. The scientist who turned politician, and the politician who put duty before expediency. A Prime Minister who I believe was convinced that what he did was what he sincerely believed needed to be done for the development of the nation and people. Today, his family and friends are allowing us to share this moment together and to remember Sir Manuel's life, not only as a Prime Minister, but as a man who made good things happen a man who loved music, and a man who truly believed in Belize. To family and loved ones, I say on behalf of a grateful nation, thank you.
Thank you for those kind words, Prime Minister Briceño. From all we have heard of Sir Manuel over the last few days, and especially in these remembrances, it seems obvious that this good man did his fair share and more for Belize. As we come to the close of the musical portion of this afternoon's State Memorial Service, I would like to thank you all for sharing your time with us in this remembrance ceremony for the late Right Honorable Sir Dr. Manuel Esquivel. This does bring us to the close of the musical portion of this afternoon's program. And we thank you all for making the time to attend. To our guests here in attendance, there is a gift of Belizean sweets that Sir Manuel and his family enjoyed, and they will be offered to you as a gift. In this gift is a memento that has 2 quotes on it that were favorites of the late Right Honorable Sir Dr. Manuel Esquivel, one of which is from John Stewart. And it reads, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing," by John Stuart Mill. Thank you all again for attending. We now hand over the broadcast of this afternoon to Mr. Dale McDougall and Mr. Jules Vasquez to carry on for the official military order of events.
Master of Ceremonies on this occasion, Dale McDougall here, bringing to you the remainder of today's event. We've heard the remembrances from former Prime Minister Dean Barrow. We've heard the family remembrance by Sir Manuel's son David Esquivel, and we've heard from Prime Minister the Honorable John Briceño. So now we'll turn it over to the military part, where there has been the march on of the Guard of Honor, and now the playing of the national anthem and the 21-gun salute. The cannons here will be firing the 21 shots into the Caribbean Sea to pay homage to the former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Sir Dr. Manuel Esquivel. All of this is happening here on the grounds of the Government House in Belize City. After the 21-gun salute, of course, by the Belize Defense Force, there will be the last post, and then there will be a segment of silence, 2 minutes of silence, followed by the reveille, and then the placing of wreaths by government officials. The flag, the national flag, will be presented to the chief mourner, Lady Esquivel, on this occasion. Then that signals the departure of the officials, and then, of course, the march off by the Belize Defense Force. Again, you're watching or listening to a live broadcast of the 2-day event, the State Memorial for the Right Honorable Dr. Sir Manuel Amadeo Esquivel, KCMG PC. KCMG, of course, means that he's a Knight Commander of the Order of St. Michael and St. George, and PC because he's a member of the Privy Council after having been bestowed the title of Right Honorable during his term in office, which spanned from 1984 to 1989, and on a second occasion from 1993 to 1998. Sir Manuel Esquivel, of course, in that second administration, led a coalition government which comprised of the United Democratic Party and the National Alliance for Belizean Rights on that second occasion. After retiring from political life in 1998, he passed on the reins of the United Democratic Party to His deputy in the second administration, former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Dean Barrow, who himself demitted office in 2020. Sir Manuel's contribution has been underscored in a number of instances throughout the 2 days of this broadcast. 2 days of remembering him for his contributions, his steady hand during some turbulent times in Belize's history, and the decisions that he and his administrations have made still continue to have a lasting impact on Belizean society. And again, the music is being furnished by the Belize Defense Force Band. The military music, of course, you're hearing in the background is the Esprit de Corps. Today's band is the Belize Defense Force that has evolved from an all-volunteer band to a military band with a mandate to establish a full-time military unit within the Belize Defense Force. So the program of music that you've been hearing throughout the course of yesterday and today includes the Prime Minister's Salute, which is the first 4 measures or bars of the Belize National Anthem, Chopin's Funeral March, Homeland by the Sea, the Military Escort, the BDF Quick, and Gallant Marches. The Band of the Belize Defense Force policies designed by the Ministry of Defense and Border Patrol in the nation's capital, Belmopan. Daily management done by the Force's Bandmaster, Staff Sergeant Trevor Major. The administration is responsibility of the Director of Music, Captain Kevin Campbell. Again, this is the second day of the 2-day state memorial for the Right Honorable Dr. Sir Manuel Esquivel, KCMG PC, who served as Prime Minister on 2 occasions in our post-independence history. As we mentioned, he died on February the 10th at age 81. At this time, we have a moment of silence. And to conclude now the 2-minute period of silence, here now is the Reveille by the Belize Defense Force Band. At this time, we have the placing of the wreaths by government officials. So now, ladies and gentlemen, what you're seeing now is the portion of this national transmission of the placing of the wreaths here on the grounds of the government house in Belize City. The placing of the wreaths by government officials, the first of which, of course, is the nation's head of state, Her Excellency Froila Salam, the Governor General of Belize. And now the nation's head of government will be placing a wreath. The Prime Minister of Belize, the Honorable John Briceño, who is also the Minister of Finance and Economic Development. Following the Prime Minister is the leader of the opposition in the House of Representatives. In this case, it's the Honorable Moses Shine Barrow, the area representative for the Mesopotamia constituency. Again, this is a part of the placing of the wreaths by the nation's leading government officials. Following the leader of the opposition, we now turn our attention to the chief mourner on this occasion, Lady Esquivel, the wife of the late Right Honorable Sir Dr. Manuel Esquivel. Again, supporting her on this occasion is her aide-de-camp, Major Megan Aspinall of the Belize Defense Force. And Lady Esquivel, of course, is being supported by her children, David, Laura, and Ruth. And now the national flag will be presented to the chief mourner, Lady Esquivel, by the Governor General of Belize, Her Excellency Froila Salam. Her Excellency Froila Salam, of course, is the third Governor General in Belize's post-independence history, the second woman to ascend to the post, and this is the state memorial marking the end of 2 days of official mourning, the period of mourning for Prime Minister Right Honorable Dr. Sir Manuel Esquivel. And at this time, we begin with the departures of the leading government officials, beginning with Her Excellency Froila Salam, the Governor General of Belize. Following the departure of Her Excellency Froila Salam, we now have the departure of the Prime Minister of Belize, the Honorable John Briceño. Following the Prime Minister will be the Chief Justice, Acting Chief Justice, the Honorable Michelle Arana, and thereafter the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Moses Shine Barrow. And that signals we're just about to end this afternoon's presentation and officially marking the end of the period of mourning for the former two-term Prime Minister of Belize. And we have the march off now by the Belize Defense Force. And we've just witnessed and listened to history, ladies and gentlemen, because on this occasion there were not any religious rites, but rather a more secular service, a state memorial for the Right Honorable Sir Manuel Esquivel. Secular music, classical and Belizean mix, and modern contemporary music. The fact that there was not on a body that was in state, but instead an urn, because Sir Manuel had wished to be cremated. Again, the former Prime Minister died on Thursday, the 10th of February 2022 at age 81. He leaves behind, of course, his wife, the chief mourner in this case, Lady Esquivel, and their children, David, Laura, and Ruth, and a total of 8 grandchildren. A number of extended family and friends, of course. And again, this presentation of the 2-day state memorial for the former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Sir Dr. Manuel Esquivel, was a collaboration of the Government Press Office, the organizations Love FM and Love Television, Channel 7 and Channel 5, and it has since been rebroadcast by a number of other media organizations across the country. You've also listened to this on national frequencies, on radio, and you can also find it on Facebook and on YouTube. And the protocol is, so now the urn is being taken off the pall and being carried by the Belize Defense Force. And again, just to quickly recap for you, the state memorial furnished by members of the Belize Defense Force. The funeral director on this occasion is Warrant Officer Class 2 Dalton Morgan, who is the Regimental Sergeant Major for the 1st Infantry Battalion. The urn party, as you can see on your television screens, is Major Ruben Kowo. And as the urn is being escorted, you heard the Prime Minister's salute, the first 4 bars of the national anthem. Escorts to the urn are Captain Jairo Che and Captain Galen Roberto. The cushion escort is Captain Adrian Bosch. Sword Party Commander, Captain Elmer Maw. Firing Party Commander, Staff Sergeant Gladstone Palacio. As we mentioned earlier, the aide-de-camp for the chief mourner is Major Megan Aspinall. The state memorial, of course, is being facilitated by the Force Sergeant Major Warrant Officer Class 1, Wilfredo Mahano. And while the urn is being transported now via a slow march of the urn party, we have, of course, Lady Kathy Esquivel, who is being escorted by her aide-de-camp. As we were mentioned at the end of the program, Lady Esquivel received the national flag on this occasion. Again, she's being supported by her children, David, Laura, and Ruth. And Lady Esquivel is being greeted by supporters and those who send her condolences to her on this occasion. And of course, Sir Manuel's grandchildren are here also on this occasion. We say thank you so much for having joined us for the last 2 days, marking this very historic, very important time in Belizean history where we're laying to rest the nation's second Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Sir Dr. Manuel Esquivel. As individuals are now filing out from under the tent here at the Government House in Belize City, we say thank you again for having joined us for this broadcast. It has been my pleasure, along with Jules Vasquez, helping you to navigate through this entire 2-day festivities. And as you see, we conclude our program with Lady Esquivel being escorted off the compound by her aide-de-camp, Major Megan Aspinall. So on behalf of all of us here, Love FM, Channel 7, Channel 5, and all those who rebroadcasted the event, and of course our friends at the press office who facilitated this broadcast, we say thank you so much for having joined us on this Wednesday.